Your Legislators is made possible in part by the generous financial support of MAPE members, making Minnesota clean waters, safe communities, quality education, and veterans care happen. We work hard for Minnesotans. Live from St. Paul, Minnesota, we welcome you to another season of Your Legislators, a roundtable discussion featuring state lawmakers who are prepared to answer your questions and discuss important issues affecting citizens of Minnesota. Now, here's your moderator for tonight's program, Barry Anderson.
Good evening and welcome to Your Legislators. We're delighted that you could join us on this pleasant Minnesota Thursday evening for an opportunity to have a conversation with Minnesota's legislators about the issues that are underway here in St. Paul and how those issues might affect you. I remind you, as I do each week, that this is your program, that you should call in your questions at the fancy telephone number that will appear on the bottom of your screen. And failing that, you can also get in touch with us via Facebook and Twitter and probably some other technological gadget that I don't understand. But in any event, this is your program, and we want to hear from you. So get your questions to us. We'll see that they get to the panel, and we're going to have an hour of great conversation about the issues here in Minnesota. Let's begin, as we do each week, by unraveling the mysteries of St. Paul by introducing the panel that's going to help us with that process. To my immediate left, a frequent guest on our program from District 66A in St. Paul, Representative Alice Hausman. Representative Hausman, delighted you could join us.
Good to be with you.
Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, I live in St. Paul, but after redistricting have lost most of the city and now represent a little bit of St. Anthony Park and Como Park, and the cities of Falcon Heights, Lauderdale, and most of Roseville. Chair the Capital Investment Committee and serve on Transportation, Finance, Legacy, and Ways and Means. So I always joke that I build things. I spend all of my time building things, and we'll perhaps talk about that tonight.
You're the official state representative from the State Fair, right?
Yes, State Fair is in my district.
All right, very good. Someone who has, I don't think, been with us, despite the fact he is one of our more senior members of the Minnesota Legislature, and we're just thrilled that he could be with us this evening from District 1 in Plummer, Minnesota, Senator Leroy Stumpf.
Thank you.
Senator Stumpf, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, I represent Senate District 1, which is in northwestern Minnesota, so it's kind of a long distance from here. Represent 6 counties up there, was elected actually to the House in 1980 and then to the Senate in 82, and have spent most of my legislative work in education, both higher education as well as K-12. And just most recently, after our senior Senator Keith Langseth left, took over the as chair of the Capital Investment Committee in the Senate.
Senator,
and he makes wine.
Well, I was just going to say, he's famous for another reason, because there is at least one other famous Minnesotan that comes from Plummer, and that is, of course, the Chief Justice of the Minnesota Supreme Court, Lori Gilday. And yes, having made several appearances with her around the state over her time as Chief Justice, I can tell you, and you can report back to the people in Plummer, that she opens all of her remarks by saying what a great place Plummer is to be from, to have lived in, and to live in now, and I think her parents still live there. So
yes, they do, and it is a great place to be from.
So very good. Very good, very good. This is our little press release for Plummer. A frequent guest with us over the years from District 25, Rochester, Senator David Senjem. Senator Senjem, delighted you could join us. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, it's good to be here, Barry. I joined the Senate in 2003. Had served previously on the Rochester City Council. By the way, I represent, if you will, the north half of Rochester, northern Olmsted County, and most of Dodge County to the west. And so that's sort of home, but as I said, served on Rochester City Council, was elected in 2003. Have served actually as a minority leader, majority leader, have served as chair of the Capital Investment Committee, currently serve on Taxes, Transportation, and Capital Investment Committee. So, and by the way, we have a Plummer building in Rochester, and I'm not sure there's a relationship there, but I'll say it anyway.
You are retired from Mayo, am I recalling correctly?
I am retired from Mayo. I put 44 years in. I hate to make it sound like I'm that old, but I had my time at Mayo, great place, and
We'll probably
right
talk a
by
little,
River.
talk a little bit about a project that's underway there
All
that's
right.
of some significance
We
when
can
we
do
get to
that.
that. And finally, joining us from District 38B, Delwood, Representative Matt Dean. Representative Dean, I think we decided you've been with us at least once, maybe on a couple of prior occasions. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born on the Iron Range and grew up on Rice Street, and currently represent the Northeast Metro, where I live with my wife Lauren, our 3 kids, and this is my 5th term in the House, and I've spent a lot of time with Representative Hausman traveling across the state and looking at different projects, and we'll be talking about some of that tonight for our capital investment. I also serve on the Health and Human Services Committee, the Finance Committee, and Ways and Means Committee, and the Rules Committee. And it's been a pleasure to serve in the House, and look forward to the questions that folks have to call in and check in on our session.
Tell our viewers a little bit about your background outside of the legislature, what your career was, is, et cetera.
Sure. I went to the University of Minnesota and went there through the architecture school and started my own business in 1994, and practiced and did a lot of institutional work in the Twin City area, and enjoyed that very much. And now in the legislature, it's a lot more frustrating than building buildings, but it's a lot of fun too, and look forward to talking a little bit more about building stuff around the state.
Well, let's use that as a great segue into the chair of the Capital Investment Committee, Representative Hausman. Talk a little bit about this. Of course, is, I don't know if you call it the off session, short session, even numbered year, whatever you want to call it. You're typically devoted to bonding. Tell our viewers a little bit about the process, kinds of projects we might see, your perspective on it. We'll just go around the table and have a little round table discussion.
Well, all the agencies submit their requests and priorities to the governor, and then certainly to us, and then regions around the state as well, local governments. And there are books about this thick, and we start with between $3 and $4 billion worth of requests, I think, and they still are coming in. And then we have to, all we do is keep paring that down to an acceptable number. And of course, as Representative Dean said, during the interim we do a lot of traveling. It does make a difference to see them. Sometimes we decide exactly the opposite on an issue that we might have anticipated. And then it is the hardest bill to pass, because unlike every other budget bill that passes with a simple majority, this one requires a supermajority. And so you craft it and put consensus together in a very, very different way. And I think just by way of setting the framework, it often has to do with, of course, size and content. And usually the size is too big. I introduced one today that was too big for probably the, we'll hear what the minority thinks about it, but it is too big for that handshake deal that the 4 leaders had the last night of session, and it's too big for my speaker because he has given us a target. But it seemed to me that I just needed to lay something out there to show $1 billion sounds like a lot until you start looking at, when you do everything from higher education to public safety and corrections, how fast that goes. And so the story I've been telling the last few days is about 16 years ago when Arne Carlson, Governor Carlson, signed a $1 billion bill. And I haven't done the math on this, but someone else did. If you added the inflation factor, that today would be about $1.5 billion. And our rule is we still have to stay under $1 billion on bonding bills. And so I think we are sort of trapped in this psychological barrier of $1 billion. And I suggest that it may be hurting our state. We have a huge, huge backlog. Just in MnSCU, the number of projects, most of the projects in MnSCU have been submitted in 2008, 2010, 2012. They just keep coming back and the list gets longer. So a backlog either because of past vetoes, line item vetoes, and just difficulty in getting everything into the bill.
Senator Stump?
Well, this is my first attempt at putting a bill together in the Senate, and I haven't gone through all the years of doing that. But what we did is we started out last September, and we went around the state and we looked at, we spent 8 weeks looking at projects, and I think we generally cover around close to 400 projects that we end up looking at. I happen to bring some of the requests here, and it's you know, a lot of requests that add
This is
up.
television. We love visual aids. This is
Well, if I could just mention that the bottom line on this is about $4 billion, and that's not counting the $1 billion in requests for transportation projects. So it's a real pile of what we would call need or projects that somebody and maybe communities and maybe a lot of people want to see happen. So our job is to try to, as a committee, and Senator Senjum and I have worked closely over the period that I've been involved, to try to weed out some of the things, you know, and I'm sure when he was chair of the committee, he had an approach. The approach that I would like to see is to try to put an emphasis on kind of the core infrastructure, the important things that, you know, kind of are the foundation of our economy and our state. And even that's going to be a challenge to try to address those needs. That's like keep the roofs fixed and the roads and the bridges and do some, you know, obviously some projects, but you know, there's $1 billion in transportation needs, and we don't have a transportation bill, which is really unfortunate, I think.
Senator Senjum, your thoughts?
Well, perhaps much has been said, but I'll just say, as Senator Stump and myself and other committee members have traveled the state, I think and we do this literally, it seems like every year, and anticipating some level of bonding, depends on the year, but we've traveled extensively through the years, and you come to realize how large and how much you have in terms of ownership within the infrastructure of the state of Minnesota. As, for instance, I think it's about 54 MnSCU colleges and 5 University of Minnesota college or sites, all which have roofs, all which have heating systems, ventilation systems, all which have needs that relate to laboratories or changes in approach towards education or whatever, and so you get all of these asks or requests facing you, whether, again, DNR facilities, the human service facilities, St. Peter, et cetera. And so you sort of weigh all this, you understand very quickly, and I'm not even talking at this point about local projects, community projects that seem to be increasing as the years go by in terms of the numbers of those kinds of requests. So you do get fairly large documents, upwards now to $4 billion worth of requests, and it's up to the committee and certainly the lead chairs to hone in on and putting a good bill together. And I will tell I don't know how you quite do this. I did it a couple times. It's and I always say it's probably more of an art than a science for sure. There's a lot of times you can't really make good sense out of what you ended up with, but you do it because you want to do the best job you can, but then you also want to get the bill passed. And so there's a little bit of this and that in any bill that's put together with respect to bonding. But it's a very important part of our work in the legislature. I would say this infrastructure is vital to so many things that our state does, and you have to have good infrastructure if you're going to have good operational agencies and so on and so forth. So we're challenged by a lot of requests and limits on the spending side as well. So that's the great art, if you will, of putting this bonding bill together.
Representative Dean?
Well, I think you can't underestimate the importance of traveling around the state, and we can see that the state is it's a big state, and it's also very different in Pipestone County than it is from Washington County, where I live. The needs are very different, and they're changing. In greater Minnesota, we've got a lot of stresses on particularly very small towns across greater Minnesota. Our regional centers are doing a little bit better in this economy, but our small towns are really hurting. Agriculture is sort of been a really good base in the last couple of years. It's pulled up our regional centers, but a lot of small communities are really struggling, and we're seeing that in the capital investment requests, new requests and different requests for infrastructure and for basic needs for small towns just trying to hang on by their fingernails across the state of Minnesota. And we also see our big cities, their needs are changing as well and putting more stress on our statewide budget. And so we've got a big state, we've got a very different state from one quarter to the next, and it's been really fun to travel around the state with other legislators and kind of see where they represent and the different corners of the state. You think you meet a new representative that comes down from some corner of the state, and you think, well, man, how did this guy get elected? This, and you go to his hometown, you think this is a good representative from this area. So, this that represents his area very well and focuses on his needs that he might have from his corner of the state or her corner of the state. So we can't underestimate that enough, and it does give us a great appreciation for the state in general.
You talked about making the visits, and I'm going to ask you this question, Representative Dean, but we can ask it to the panel as a whole. Either this session or some prior session, I'm wondering, is there a project in particular where you made the visit, you looked, and you said, this now has a higher priority than it had before? Is there one particular project that stands out in your mind? Or maybe it's the other way around. I'm now persuaded that this is one of those that goes on the list that we don't see.
Well, I always say that if you can get out and make the trips, and even for our local representatives who aren't on the bonding committee to try to join us, because inevitably there is a project every year that looks great on paper, and you show up and it's a boondoggle. And the opposite is also true. You think, why are we even looking at this? And you get there and you think, well, of course, this is what you really should be doing. And a lot of times the best resources are the people who work in the facilities or the cities, the maintenance people that might be able to tell you a little bit of the history of the building or why we're here. But I can MnSCU project, where a lab project where you think, man, that's a lot of money for fixing up these lab facilities, and you get there and you think, wow, this would be a really good investment because it's going to save us buying a new building and the energy needs that we need. And other projects that look great on paper, you get there and you think, this is not as advertised. These dollars are not going to what it says on the paper. So it really is important to get out and bring out your boondoggleometer to check it out on site.
Any specifics anybody wants to share with us?
Sometimes there's a surprise. We went up to northern Minnesota, and we were going to go to a correctional institution. And I think most of us went there thinking, I don't know, it sounds maybe a little local. And then we got there to this incredible surprise, and that is these inmates all work on a working farm and gardens, and they process meat. So we saw the tractors out in the field, we saw the meat processors, we saw those processing the vegetables that they would sell at a farmer's market. And that's the nature of this institution, and we are told they have a lower recidivism rate than any other institution in the state. A unique model that seems to be working, and we have a renewed interest in something like that after seeing it. That was a surprise. And once in a while you get to a local area and you realize they are asking you to do something that they are not expecting that they have any responsibility to pay for. And again, on a local level, that we lose a little bit of interest because you always expect local effort as well.
All right, we have a question from a couple of viewers who want to talk about the Polymet mining project in northern Minnesota and whether that's going to see any legislative action. Monticello and I forget where the other call is from, but in both cases, they're interested in whether or not there will be anything that happens in this session. Senator Stumpf?
Well, I don't sit on any of the committees that actually take it up, so I'm not probably a good person to give you the latest update. But I think the information that I do have is that there's been an awful lot of resources invested in trying to seek the permits and the approval to go ahead. And I know it's a very important decision or series of decisions, This afternoon, I was visiting with somebody or a group of people that wanted to build a road in their community. And they said they had a little low ditch that they wanted to go through. And they had to get 9 permits before they could even start scraping the ground. And so I understand the need to be sure our environment is protected, but yet I do appreciate as a farmer that there has to be a time when you've got to go out and get the work done and move forward. And so I guess that's my feelings about PolyMet. The decision has to be made.
Senator Singh, well, go ahead, Representative.
Well,
Hartman.
our speaker has said that he doesn't intend to move any legislation, and I think it's important to say that would be on both sides of the issue. On the one side, it might have been the financial assurance issue that some members had raised, but I also spoke to Representative Dill, who acknowledged that means he can't move a wetlands issue either, because if you're saying you're not dealing with the issue, you sort of can't deal with it on either side. Now, I think, in fairness, though, we do have to say a lot of people in the state are interested from the number of comments they just filed, and it is a different kind of mining that has around the nation and world has certainly had some issues relative to water quality that has left the taxpayers sometimes holding the bag. So I think it requires caution.
Representative Dean, any thoughts on this?
Well, I think if you look at the mineral resources in northern Minnesota in the 20th century that really catapulted Minnesota's economy and really our country in iron across the country, helped our economy, helped our state, and helped our country. And as Representative Anzels and former Representative Rukavina would attest, won the Second World War. I've heard that speech many times, and it's a true thing. And it means stuff. And jobs in northern Minnesota are harder to come by, and we've got a lot riding on that. And the mineral resources that we have could fuel a 21st century economic recovery for northern Minnesota, mean a lot of jobs and a lot of money for the state of Minnesota and for moving forward. So I certainly hope it's a priority, and I hope it's not being just held back by a very few number of environmentalists who have good hearts, but also probably more political clout relative to those jobs. I know there's a lot of families that are struggling up there, and that economy is very fragile right now. So we're very concerned about it. We certainly hope it moves forward. If you hear the comments from northern Minnesota, from Democrats and Republicans, they say we need jobs, and this is how to do it.
Well, our bonding committee, interestingly, and I'm not remembering if you was Senator Stump, but we stopped at PolyMet 2 or 3 years ago as we were traveling the Northeast, and so I had a chance to see it firsthand. And it's a former mining site, not particularly pristine anymore, but growing back, and you got all this wealth in the ground. They say, some people say, equal or greater than North Dakota in terms of overall prosperity and opportunity, and so I think you have to look at that. I happened to attend a couple of, I don't know, just say a month ago, a large public hearing down at the River Center. 2,300 people there. I've never seen a public hearing that big in my life. And it went on for 3 or 4 hours of testimony. But I guess I feel this. I think you can put in place the engineering controls and the financial insurance mechanisms to make that work. There has to be a will, obviously, and there has to be some level of understanding amongst all involved. But I think you can make it work, and you can put enough monitoring in place through the permit system to allow this thing to go forward and monitor continuously, put in place the financial assurance mechanisms, and I just think that's an opportunity we ought to take advantage of.
One of the things I learned from a retired miner from northern Minnesota, one of the first times I heard him speak, he said, Google resource curse. And I did. And all of the research came up on what happens when you depend on one industry. And in a resource-rich area in the state or the nation or the world, the economic line is flat. But when you diversify the economy, there begins to be a slight incline. And that is kind of the boom and bust cycle nature of resource extraction. They come in, they extract the resource, and then they go on. And sometimes they leave a mess behind for others to clean up. And so the question that I think some are concerned about in terms of this mining is it is roughly 20 years of jobs for potentially somewhere between 200 and 500 years of water treatment, because that seems to be what those early environmental statements are suggesting.
All right, and as I think just to update our viewers, Pelican Rapids was the other community where that call came from. Just to update our viewers, there's an environmental process underway and various filings and regulations that are moving forward, so it isn't necessarily a surprise that the legislature wouldn't move on this at this precise moment. Is that a correct statement of where we stand? Or?
Yeah, they're still in the permit process.
Okay.
I'll never forget this because it was so profound. A couple of years ago when you were up there, they mentioned they'll probably have $40 million invested into their permit before they find out whether this can go forward or not, but the value is still there.
Yeah, there's two things we're really good at, doing nothing and overreacting, and right now we're in the doing nothing phase. So.
So we'll see how the process unfolds. My guess is we'll have a chance to talk about this next week and the weeks that follow. Anyway,
unfortunately,
viewer from Otter Tail, one of the things I appreciate about our audience is they are tracking a wide variety of issues, and they're not afraid to call in and put our distinguished panel on the spot about issues that maybe aren't in the headlines but are nonetheless important. This viewer from Otter Tail has been watching legislation regarding admission criteria for veterans' homes, and he wants to know if there's what the status of that is and what feedback the panel has heard from veterans and veteran service staff. Now, does anyone know anything in detail about that issue?
And that's particularly the criteria for admission, right?
Right, exactly.
And I believe there was just a decision, it's a bill that is moving forward, and the criteria were, they were suggesting that the first person in should be the disabled veteran, the wounded veteran, then other veterans, then spouses of veterans, and last family members of veterans. And I think, I don't know, I think most of us would say a wounded veteran or a disabled veteran should have top priority. But this has apparently become very, very controversial, and whether there's a misunderstanding about it in terms of how we're communicating it and how veterans are hearing it, but it has been strongly opposed by veterans, and I think that part, at least in the House, is now going to be taken out of the bill, as in terms of what I've been able to figure out.
Anyone else have anything to add to that or that summary?
Well, you know, we've been around the state and visited many veterans' homes, and I think you quickly come to realize, and then of course you get impact or input from back home, and you realize, you know, there's a whole lot more demand here than there are beds, and the number of beds are actually a function of a federal allocation, and we can only have so many, and so the entrance criteria becomes even tighter in terms of who really, you know, who should be first and second.
And no federal money is forthcoming.
So on.
Last year we put $18 million in the bill because the Veterans Affairs really expected that would be matched by the federal government. We waited in August and September and October and November and December and January, and now understand that it's been awarded to 19 states and we are 21. So there's very little federal money anymore, and I think some of us feel until they figure it out in Washington, we should still say, what should we be doing locally to assure that there is housing for veterans and health care for veterans? So if it means we come up with some models ourselves in the interim, I think we are looking at those possibilities.
All right. Moving on, Senator Stumpf, let me ask you about your field of particular interest, higher education. We have a viewer who's concerned about what might be happening in higher education this session. Of course, it's not typically a budget session, but nonetheless, that is an issue that comes up from time to time. So we'll start with you.
Well, I think the issue that I've heard is that the budget that we put together last year was short some money to accommodate the the budget that the Minskew system has. And the governor, I think, responded to that in his supplemental budget with adding, I believe it was $17 million more dollars to the Minskew system, and I think $5 million for the University of Minnesota. And so I think that that really kind of helps the colleges and universities get through the period of the next 2 years with adequate funding. And, you know, I think that there's certainly other problems. You know, the one that I hear about quite often is that they would like more resources put into what we call HEPRA, but which is really preserving the facilities of the campuses. And there's such a pent-up demand there. I think both the University of Minnesota and the Minskew system wanted to have somewhere around $110 million per system. It's very difficult to put that kind of resources in there because it's not glamorous. I mean, you don't go out and cut a ribbon for a new boiler that you installed on some small part of a campus in rural areas someplace. I think we should, but I really think that trying to address a higher budget for that area is important, even if that means we don't get to fund some new project down, you know, that's lower on the list.
There's another way to think about this. That number just keeps getting higher, and if you look at how some of this is being spent, I think it's not quite how we would have anticipated. We're thinking leaky roofs and maybe energy efficiency windows. But a few years ago at the university, they gutted Northrop Hall and then put together revenue to rebuild it. And $18 million of that was asset preservation, higher ed asset preservation, HEPR. This year, of that amount of their request, I think something like 32 or 35 million is for one building, a mechanical engineering, to really renovate that. And and there's an advantage to them in putting a project into the asset preservation line because the state does 100% of it. When they do a new construction, the state does 2/3 and the institution does 1/3. And so I've wondered if we've not built an incentive for them to move projects there, and whether we ought to think about having them be very, very careful about how many buildings they're building and say you really have to have a business plan to operate and maintain them. It's sort of out of our control once we have funded that building, but I think there has to be some responsibility on the system to say, how are we going to take care of this building? And so maybe we've put too much of an incentive to move projects into asset preservation and ought to put a little more pressure on them to say, be very careful what you build because we think you probably should have a business plan for operating and maintaining the building.
Well, I'll just maybe tag on to some of this as we go around and get input not only at the Capitol but certainly on site. HEPR asset preservation is always a big one, but we also, and I'm not sure this issue will ever go away, is the cost of tuition and how do we ultimately make this affordable. I happened to visit with one of our interns, I think it was last week, and she's going to have about $120,000 worth of debt when she graduates. So, well, that's a pretty long-term commitment to a debt. Now, hopefully it'll all work out for her, but that's the reality of life, and I don't know how we get to it, but the cost of education is constantly seemingly going up, whether it's facilities, whether it's salaries, whether it's hard to know exactly where all these costs come from, but they're there, and they affect real Minnesotans every day in ways that you wish they didn't.
Well, I think that's a very important point. I've got a 17-year-old that we're starting to look at colleges, and we've been saving for her college since she was a baby. And we're in the same boat as a lot of people that the stock market since 2008 has not done very well, and home prices are probably down 40%. So In the late 90s, the economy was doing very good. Housing prices were going up. Families could borrow against the cost of their home, and the investments that they'd been making could really pay for this rapid growth in spending in our colleges and universities. And parents just can't afford to pay for that, and students cannot continue to accumulate unlimited debt to pay for that either. And I think universities, the University of Minnesota in particular, and others in MnSCU are doing a great job of trying to control costs and cap that, and also realize that students are having to work more and to borrow more. But it's not the good old days of the 1990s when we could just rely on investments in home equity to fuel inflation for schools. So we've got to get a handle on it.
And I think before we leave higher ed, since we're all interested in bonding, we should say higher education is always the most significant part of the bonding bill, roughly 30% of the bill. And that's because it is about our future. It's training the workforce of the future, and it is about all that research and development that's going to shape the next Fortune 500 company here. The one important statistic, I think, as we look at what projects we fund, in MnSCU particularly, enrollment is down slightly, but the one area where enrollment's up is those students who want science as their background. They know, they are smart enough to know science is their future. And so if you look at the number of requests from MnSCU institutions where a science facility is high on their list, I think they're responding to that growing group of students who are seeking a degree and a job in that area.
If I could just make a comment on, as we went around the state, we visited a lot of technical colleges and community colleges. And the thing that really impressed me was that there were many programs in these technical colleges that were where you had huge demand. I mean, technicians, people who would be mechanics, welders. I mean, the trades are many companies can't get enough of these people. In Dakota Technical College, they have a good welding program, a large welding program, but they said they could place 100 welders, and that still wouldn't even come close to the filling the need. So the other thing is that Minnesota, and I think the United States in general, doesn't have the same connection to business community as, let's say, Europe does, Germany in particular, where you have a very strong connection between the business community, the employer, and the student. There are some examples out here. Out of Dakota, you had John Deere, and you had GM, and you had Caterpillar, a number of them that they enter the program, and when they get into the program, they have a part-time job automatically with these companies. Then, once they graduate, they got a full-time job and make excellent wages. In fact, probably as much, if not more, than some of the four-year degrees. Not to downplay four-year degrees, but I think we have good things happening here where you can lower the cost of the kind of education where you can get an excellent salary and good lifetime job.
And what some students are doing to keep the debt down, in those first 2 years, they go to the two-year community college to do a lot of the requirements at a lower cost. Even pre-med students do this to a certain extent. And then they transfer into a four-year or university. And so it helps to hold down the debt that you're anticipating.
My sense is that those of us with political science and history degrees, that we're probably not in that market where they're just clamoring to hire us. Would I be right about that?
It's called re-education. You have to go back and...
there are a lot of people who think I should engage in that, but that's a different story. All right, so let's move on and talk about taxes a little bit here. Viewer from Tyler, and actually we're going to broaden the question a little bit because, of course, there are tax bills pending and there's activity in that area, but just to get on the table, a viewer from Tyler says he or she wants wants tax cuts to benefit everyone, suggests maybe some kind of a utility tax cut or sales tax reduction. viewer in Hermantown says, what about reducing property taxes by perhaps an increase in the state sales tax? And obviously, there's also been lots of activity on taxes around the Capitol in the last several days. Let's start with you, Representative Dean. Tell us a little bit about taxes and where you think we're going, where you think we should go, and so forth.
Sure. Well, I come about it from the standpoint that Minnesota is really struggling from a very, very tough recession, and families are struggling, small businesses are struggling, and the good news is the economy is getting better. I firmly believe that the tax increases, over $2 billion in tax increases pushed forward by Governor Dayton and the majority, was the wrong decision, was moving in the wrong direction. I think we need to move in the direction of other states that are tightening their belts and trying to become more competitive. I think we need to become more like Indiana, more like Michigan, more like states that are really trying to become more competitive. And I think the tax increases that were put forward make us less competitive with our neighboring states. And I fundamentally believe that. And I see that regulation and taxes in Minnesota mean jobs that are not going to be here down the road. And I think that was the wrong decision. I think restoring some of the tax increases that were put forward last year is a step in the right direction. But it's not a tax cut. Let's face it, people. We raised taxes over $2 billion. In my opinion, unnecessarily so. And I think struggling families and small businesses should not have had visited upon them those tax increases. And we as a legislature shouldn't be patting ourselves on the back for cutting taxes when, in fact, at this time, we're just restoring a very, very small amount of those taxes. I say if somebody takes your lunch money and then gives you back your milk money, they don't say thank you. And I think that's what we're doing right now. And I think we ought not have raised taxes. So that's my viewpoint. Now, Alice is probably not going to agree with that.
2 biennia ago, this is what rating agencies pay attention to. 2 biennia ago, we, according to them, sort of dishonestly balanced our budget. We started borrowing one time and shifting and so forth. A rating agency pays attention to it. It's one way they determine the soundness of our state and how they're going to rate us for debt. In the last budget cycle, we were still in a downturn. We had to balance the budget, and we wanted to do it responsibly, and I think that's where the tax increase came. After in the upturn, we are now, fortunately, in better times. So that was the issue. Bad economic times, we were shifting and borrowing to balance the budget. The rating agencies don't like that. In that economic downturn, we balanced it responsibly by raising taxes, and now we are on an upswing. And I think what that bears out is raising taxes isn't necessarily a bad thing. The economy still recovered in spite of that, and that's what we're benefiting from this year. So I think if you just look at that, when a rating agency looks at a state, they say, do they have a diverse economy, do they have a healthy economy, and they look at how we set our budget. Those are the things they determine as they decide whether we are a sound economic state.
Well, I think it's a good reason to vote for the tax bills that are before the House and the Senate. Some good provisions. I can't speak for the House tax bill, but I think the Senate tax bill has some good provisions in it. I think the component that's missing is that between 2002 and 2012, we had about $1 billion, or I think it's over $1 billion, $1.3 billion of property tax increases. And the reason that occurred is that we had our school system was forced to basically operate on property taxes and less on state revenues. And that, I think, was a bad driver because it did raise property taxes across the state, and in an unequal way, because many of these districts just didn't have the capacity to pass referendums, and some still haven't. So I think when the revenues were raised in the last budget, the other thing that we did was to try to address things like all-day kindergarten, early childhood investment, and those were to try to address some of the tougher issues of success in many of our school districts. And I think that most states that have all-day kindergarten and early childhood programs do a much better job and have less problems later on, and consequently less costs in their prison system and social service area. And so I think it's an investment, but as Representative Hausman mentioned, that now with some reserves, I think you can reduce some of those taxes.
Senator Senchum?
Well, I would just say, government and life in general is a balance and has to be. And where is that balance? And you just try to find that right spot. But something I'll never forget it. I became minority leader in 2007, 2008, 9, and so on. You want to find out what people think, and so you go out and ask them. And along the way, visited many of the major corporations in Minnesota, talked to their leadership, and what really struck me and really honestly pounded to my heart, even to this moment, are the comments, and they were not just one or two or anything like this. This was general. Dave, we're not going to leave Minnesota, but we're not going to grow here. And I will never in my whole life forget those kind of comments. And why aren't they? It's because of the taxes. Again, they love their state, but corporately, from the standpoint of their stockholders all over the country, perhaps even the world, they can't afford to grow here because there are better options other places. I just think we have to look really, really strongly at this. In addition to that, the corporate income tax, or pardon me, the personal income tax, now at least at the higher level, being 10.8%, I think that becomes increasingly more difficult to bring into Minnesota top-flight people that we're going to need in certainly certain sectors to do the kind of work and the imagination that we need to grow our state forward. So I think that this tax issue is just terribly critical. Not only, everybody, hates taxes, but as you put this state together and make it operate in the way it ought to, in a balanced sort of way, I'm not sure we're balanced anymore. And, this is free agency. It's a competitive world that we live in, and I'm not sure that we realize that to the extent that we need to.
But Dave, when we went around the state, down in southwestern Minnesota, they need water.
Yeah.
I mean, there's communities down there that are running out of water, and they're moving to Iowa. You go in other parts of the state, they need housing.
Yeah.
And I think some of those things are just as important. If they don't have housing, they can't grow.
Yeah.
And trying to find those a solution to those problems are probably as difficult, if not more difficult, than some of the others. That taxes are a part, but you have to have housing, and you have to have educated employees, and you have to have water. So it's...
No, I don't say there's a balance there. There's no question about it. It's just, are we in balance?
We have a viewer from Glenwood who wants to talk about the tobacco tax. Will the legislature consider lowering the tobacco tax? Anybody want to take a run at that?
I don't think we'll be visiting that this year.
Unlikely to happen. Can we tell him that? I'm afraid that would be the most likely response.
Well, I would like to say to this gentleman, I'm sorry, because he's paying more for tobacco because the financing for the Viking Stadium did not work out and he got taxed more, and unfairly so. And taxes should be fair, and I think that smokers are bearing an unbearable amount of the not just smokers, but also convenience stores and others, particularly in border communities, that we hit harder, and we affect those economies.
All right, we'll move on to another topic. Viewer from Swift County wants to know about the Senate office building. Viewer is worried about, I shouldn't say worried, that's not fair. The viewer's question is the new Senate office building a short-term fix instead of looking at a long-term need for offices? Who can tell us about that issue and where it stands? Senator Senja, maybe we'll start with you. I don't think we've started with you.
Well, we all certainly know about the Senate office building. I'm just not sure where it stands because a lot of this is between Leader Bach and Leader Thiessen right now, and the House has to approve this, and I'm not sure if they will, given the kind of the pulse rate I'm hearing. It doesn't. Well, I'm not sure it seems like it or not. That's one of the great mysteries is this project going forward or not, and. As of today, it doesn't seem like it's got a lot of wind in the sails, but who knows? We got a lot of session left. It's strongly unpopular, and I was at a point somewhat supportive of it, but when you don't put all the senators in, if you got 40 in the office building and 20 or so are in the state capitol, I don't think that creates the chemistry that building, in my view, was meant to bring.
Where we went wrong, I think, was already several years ago. Representative Maury Lanning and I were together on that Capitol Commission at the time, and we both argued before we started the Capitol that we should look at the whole campus plan, who works there, why, where should they be, and to have a plan for the whole campus. We never did that. And so now we're right in the middle of the construction, and we haven't resolved that issue yet. I think the thing that went wrong was that it happened in the tax bill, and so we're paying for it with higher cost debt. Appropriation bonds cost more than GO bonds, and they pass with the simple majority, and so it's a kind of debt we should do less of than GO bonding. But I think the thing that confuses House members, and I'm not sure I speak for both of us, but we have always thought that the frustration was that senators were in two buildings and that they preferred to be in one. But what we sense from this plan is that not only will they still be in two buildings, they'll be in the Capitol in this one, but they're also putting hearing rooms in this other building. So now they will have senators in two buildings and hearing rooms in two buildings. So you've almost made it for the public a little more difficult. So I think in part this was because we didn't solve the problem 2 years ago when before we got involved in the Capitol project, and now I think the senators particularly feel under the gun because they don't know where they're going to go.
Well, I think it's also an issue of trying to serve the public. The Capitol is the building for the public, and when you go and walk around the Capitol right now, I think there's a restroom on one floor for women, a restroom on the next floor for men. Right. The elevator service is very, very poor, and they need better handicap accessibility, a whole host of things that are really problems. And I think that you're right. I think that we don't have a long-range plan, and if we did, that would have been much better. And I maybe we can get into all in one building, and I think that probably would be the better choice. But we've gone down this road, and now we're kind of backed up. If we stop the funding of the Capitol, the costs of stopping and then restarting are going to be fairly significant. I mean, there's a lot of workers that are working on the Capitol right now, and if we don't move with some place to go, I think that's probably the likely outcome is to stop the renovation on the Capitol.
Well, I think combining them, people look at this and they shake their heads and they think, here government goes again. You've got a building for 44 people costing $90 million with a parking ramp, over $1.5 million per office, and everybody doesn't want to move into this building. We're already spending $200 million to fix up the Capitol. The governor works in the Capitol. His space is getting much larger. Senate works both in the Capitol and in this new building. Those spaces are getting larger. The house, for some reason, has leadership suites in the new building. Those are getting larger. And I look at it from the public perspective. What are we offering to the public? We're making them park further away. They have to walk by a $90 million building, and they don't really get much more in their beautiful capital. I'd like to see a lot more public space within our beautiful capital, and I think we can certainly do that without a brand new $90 million building for swing space. We've got almost 40 offices for senators in the current state office building. We're moving to 44 in a new building. So the average guy is going to look at this and scratch his head and say, what did you guys get for a $90 million building here? And that's why I think it doesn't pass the common sense test. If it had gone through the committee process like it should have, we would have ferreted out the silliness out of the project, and we probably would have a much better project. I think there's still time for a Plan B to move forward without doing this. And if we get on it pronto, I think we can certainly do that without the expense of moving forward with a $90 million office building.
If there is merit to senators being in one building, for those that have walked through the caverns of the basement, there is a lot of space down there. Huge open space now that we never were able to see before.
We only have about 30 seconds left or so. Any thoughts on when the legislative session might wrap up? Let's start with our senior member, Senator Stumpf. Using all those powers of foresight that you have, what do you think?
I've been here for quite a few years, but I've never seen a session end very much earlier than a couple days from the deadline.
Which is about May 21st or something?
May 19th.
May 19th.
Yeah.
Representative Hausman, what do you think?
May 19th.
Senator St. John?
I used to say May 19th, but if we can get this tax bill done and get a bonding bill out, there isn't much left. Maybe we can go earlier.
What do you think, Representative Dean?
The earlier the better.
On that note, thank you to our distinguished panel of guests. Thank you, the viewers, for joining us on this pleasant Thursday evening in Minnesota. We invite you to come back and be with us again next week and all the weeks that follow till whenever that date is that the legislature goes home. This is your program, and we're delighted that you're with us. Thank you and good night.
There's much more about your legislators online at pioneer.org. Find out more about the history of the program, who's been a guest, and watch all our past episodes. There's also a photo gallery, informative links, and much more. You can also get involved and stay in touch by following us on Twitter and join the discussion on our Facebook page. Thank you for watching Your Legislators. Your Legislators is made possible in part by the generous financial support of MAPE members, making Minnesota clean waters, safe communities, quality education, and veterans care happen. We work hard for Minnesotans.